I'm Rebecca Wilson, 32, proud holder of an online computer science degree I earned while working full-time at my family's tech manufacturing business. The Wilsons always worshiped traditional education, making it clear my choice was second-rate. I still remember that shareholders meeting, my uncle's mocking voice. "Your online degree is worthless." Nobody expected what came next when I revealed my patent. Before I tell you how I went from family laughingstock to saving their legacy, drop a comment letting me know if you've ever had your achievements dismissed. Subscribe to hear more stories about unexpected triumph. Growing up a Wilson meant one thing: education defined your worth. Not just any education, prestigious, ivy-covered buildings where tuition costs more than most people's homes. My father James and mother Elizabeth met at Princeton. My uncle Thomas graduated from Harvard Business, and everyone expected the same from me. Family gatherings inevitably turned into academic achievement competitions, with my cousin Blake's perfect GPA and prestigious internships dominating conversation. Our family business, Wilson Tech Manufacturing, started by my grandfather Harold in his garage 40 years ago, had grown into a regional powerhouse producing specialized computer components. Every Wilson child was groomed from birth to take their place in the corporate hierarchy after obtaining the right credentials, of course. My fascination with computers began early. While other 10-year-olds played with dolls, I disassembled our home computer, much to my mother's horror. "Rebecca, ladies don't tinker with electronics," she scolded while my father reassembled the machine. Yet I couldn't help myself. Understanding how things worked filled me with indescribable joy. When college application season arrived, I applied to all the family-approved schools: Harvard, Yale, Stanford. My grades were excellent, but not exceptional by Wilson standards. Then came the financial crash of 2008. My parents' investments took a hit, and grandfather's company faced its first serious downturn. "We can't afford the full tuition," my father explained uncomfortably. "Maybe community college for 2 years, then transfer?" The shame in his voice was unmistakable. In our family, community college might as well have been remedial high school. Uncle Thomas, who had taken over as CEO from my grandfather, offered no help despite his considerable wealth. "The company scholarship is reserved for employees with executive potential," he explained while looking pointedly at his son Blake. Determined not to delay my education, I discovered online programs. For a fraction of traditional tuition, I could earn a computer science degree while working. I enthusiastically shared my research at dinner. "Online?" My mother nearly choked on her wine. "Those aren't real degrees, honey." "Your mother's right," my father added. "No reputable company would take that seriously." Uncle Thomas laughed outright. "If you want to waste your time on internet classes, that's your business. But don't expect it to count for anything at Wilson Tech." Only my Aunt Diana, Thomas's wife, offered support. "It's still learning," she said quietly, earning a sharp look from her husband. I enrolled anyway and accepted an entry-level administrative position at Wilson Tech. While Blake entered Harvard Business School with full family fanfare, I worked days at the company and studied nights in my small apartment. My textbooks were PDFs, my professors accessible only through video calls and emails, but the education was rigorous and practical. Family events became exercises in humiliation. "How's internet school?" Uncle Thomas would ask loudly. "Learning how to make pretty websites?" He never bothered to understand that my program covered advanced algorithms, system architecture, and computational theory, the very foundations of the products his company produced. My grandfather Harold, semi-retired but still chairman of the board, occasionally showed interest in my studies, but even he seemed skeptical. "In my day, you looked your professors in the eye," he'd say. "How do they know you're not cheating?" Through it all, I maintained a perfect GPA while handling customer service calls and data entry at work. Despite repeatedly applying for positions in the technical department, I remained confined to administrative roles. "We need people with formal engineering backgrounds," the HR director explained apologetically, fully aware that formal meant traditional in Wilson speak. My cousin Blake returned from Harvard during summers for prestigious internships, receiving immediate access to product development meetings and executive briefings. Meanwhile, I couldn't even get access to the technical specifications for products I help sell. Know your place, Blake told me once when I questioned this disparity. Some of us are meant to lead, others to support. His condescension only strengthened my resolve. If the Wilsons wouldn't recognize my potential, I'd create my own path. Little did they know, their administrative assistant was absorbing everything about their business: customer complaints, manufacturing challenges, market opportunities, information that would soon prove invaluable. The revelation came during a particularly frustrating customer service call. A major client was threatening to cancel their order due to overheating issues in our flagship microprocessors. I transferred them to technical support, but the complaint stuck with me. It wasn't the first. Our tracking system showed a 20% increase in heat-related failures over the previous quarter. During a rare company-wide meeting, I raised my hand when the CEO asked for questions. Has anyone analyzed the correlation between ambient temperature and processor failure rates? I asked. The data suggests a design flaw, not user error. The conference room fell silent. Uncle Thomas stared as if I'd spoken another language. We have qualified engineers handling technical assessments, he finally replied. Let's stick to administrative issues from administrative staff. Laughter rippled through the room. My cheeks burned, but the dismissal only intensified my curiosity. That evening, I pulled public technical specifications for our processors and those of our competitors. The difference was subtle but significant. Our cooling system design hadn't evolved while processing demands increased. Working late one night, I accessed the shared company server to retrieve some customer files. A misfiled folder contained preliminary designs for next year's models. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The new designs made the same cooling mistakes, potentially worsening the problem. I drafted a detailed analysis and potential solution, leaving it anonymously in the engineering department's suggestion box. 2 weeks later, I overheard the head engineer telling my uncle, some prankster left complex cooling system modifications in our suggestion box. Probably one of the interns trying to impress us. My ideas were tossed aside without consideration. The source mattered more than the content, a reality that broke my heart but hardened my resolve. Around this time, Professor Janet Miller noticed my work in her Advanced Systems Architecture class. During a video conference, she asked, "Have you considered applying your cooling algorithm to physical systems rather than just software?" Her question sparked an idea. What if the solution wasn't just software optimization, but a fundamental redesign of how processors dispersed heat? I began sketching concepts at night, using online simulation tools to test theoretical models. Professor Miller connected me with a mentor from her industry days, who agreed to review my work confidentially. "This is innovative," he told me during our virtual meeting. "With some refinement, it could be patentable." The word patent changed everything. A patent would force recognition regardless of my credentials. I converted my dining room into a makeshift lab, ordering components with my modest savings. While my family thought I was just working on school projects, I was developing a microprocessor cooling system that could revolutionize the industry. The technical challenges were immense. Traditional cooling methods hit physical limitations with higher processing speeds. My solution used a novel arrangement of microscopic channels and a proprietary thermal compound to distribute heat more efficiently. After countless failures and revisions, my simulations showed a potential 30% improvement in heat management with minimal manufacturing cost increases. Filing a patent required money I didn't have. I approached 3 banks before finding one willing to offer a small personal loan to a young woman with steady employment, but no collateral. The loan officer, Patricia Martinez, took a chance after I explained my concept in layman's terms. "Most people talk about dreams," she said. "You talk about solutions. That's worth investing in." Finding an attorney was another challenge. Large firms wanted retainers beyond my means, while budget options lacked technology experience. I finally found Margaret Chen, a young patent attorney building her practice. "Your design has merit," she said after reviewing my documentation. "But patenting can be expensive and time-consuming. Are you sure you want to proceed independently rather than through your family's company?" I explained my situation, and Margaret nodded in understanding. Sometimes families are the last to recognize our capabilities. Let's prove them wrong. For months, we refined my application, addressing potential objections and strengthening claims. The process consumed my savings and free time, but I never wavered. This wasn't just about a cooling system anymore, it was about proving my worth on my own terms. 18 months after beginning the process, I received the email that changed everything. Patent approval. My cooling system design was now legally mine, not Wilson Tech's, despite my employment there. I had been careful to develop it entirely on my own time, using my own resources. That night, I allowed myself a small celebration, an expensive bottle of wine, and takeout from my favorite restaurant. Tomorrow would begin the next challenge, convincing my family that their administrative assistant had created something valuable. I truly believed they would finally see me differently once they understood what I'd accomplished. I was about to learn how deeply entrenched their prejudices really were. Sunday family dinners at Grandfather Harold's mansion were mandatory Wilson traditions. The week after receiving my patent approval, I arrived early, patent documentation tucked neatly in my bag. I'd rehearsed my presentation repeatedly, technical enough to demonstrate knowledge, but accessible enough for non-engineers. The family gathered in the formal dining room, conversation revolving around Blake's recent promotion at Wilson Tech despite having worked there less than a year. After dessert, I cleared my throat. "I have something to share," I announced, pulling out the patent documents. "I've developed and patented a new cooling system for microprocessors that could solve our overheating issues." The silence that followed wasn't the impressed kind. Uncle Thomas glanced at the papers without touching them. "Rebecca, this is family time, not work time," he said dismissively. "It's relevant to the company," I persisted. My design could improve performance by 30% while reducing failure rates. Blake laughed, reaching for the documents. "Let me see what internet school taught you." He flipped through pages with exaggerated disinterest. "Looks like someone got a fancy certificate online. Did you pay extra for the gold seal?" "It's a United States patent," I said firmly. "Not a certificate. Patents are issued to all sorts of impractical ideas," Uncle Thomas interjected. "Our engineers develop solutions based on rigorous training and industry experience, not academic exercises." My mother looked uncomfortable, but remained silent. My father studied his coffee cup intently. "Did you develop this on company time?" Uncle Thomas suddenly asked, his tone sharpening. "No, irraplia." "Entirely on my own. Using company information? Resources? Nothing proprietary. Just publicly available specifications and my own equipment." He nodded, seeming relieved. "Well, good hobby project. Maybe you should show it to the engineering team someday. They could explain why theoretical models rarely translate to manufacturing reality." And just like that, the conversation shifted to Blake's new sports car. My achievement, representing thousands of hours of work and substantial personal investment, was dismissed as a hobby project in less than 2 minutes. Aunt Diana caught me in the kitchen later. "They're intimidated," she whispered. "Thomas has been telling the board that cooling limitations are unavoidable physical constraints. Your solution threatens his narrative." In the following weeks, I noticed concerning developments at work. Our competitors announced breakthroughs in processor efficiency, while our sales continued declining. During a department meeting, marketing reported that 3 major clients were considering switching suppliers. "We need innovation, not excuses," the marketing director concluded. Uncle Thomas nodded gravely. "We're exploring options." Later that day, I overheard him in conversation with the company's financial officer. "The valuation keeps dropping. If we don't turn things around, selling might be our best option." Selling the company? Grandfather's legacy? The thought was unthinkable. I applied for a position in product development that opened the following week. Despite being more qualified than the minimum requirements, I received a form rejection. When I requested feedback, HR awkwardly explained that they needed someone who could hit the ground running, code for traditional credentials. Meanwhile, Blake received his second promotion, now managing a technical team despite having no engineering background. His Harvard MBA apparently counted more than actual technical knowledge. The final insult came during preparation for the quarterly product strategy meeting. Having prepared market research in my administrative capacity, I expected to attend. "This is for department heads and technical staff only," Blake informed me with unconcealed satisfaction. "You can email the files." That afternoon, I spotted grandfather looking unusually tired as he left Thomas's office. His normally commanding posture was stooped, his expression troubled. "Everything okay, Grandpa?" I asked. He patted my hand absently. "Just business concerns, Rebecca. Nothing for you to worry about." But his eyes told a different story. He was deeply worried. The company he'd built from nothing was floundering, and his son's leadership wasn't turning things around. That evening, Blake cornered me in the parking lot. "I saw you talking to Grandpa. What did you tell him?" "Nothing. I just asked if he was okay." "Listen carefully." Blake stepped closer. "Your position here is a courtesy. Know your place and stay in it. The last thing we need is Grandpa distracted by your amateur concerns." I stood my ground. "The company's failing. Everyone knows it." "The company is evolving," he corrected coldly. "And its future belongs to those qualified to lead it, not glorified secretaries with internet diplomas." As he walked away, I realized family loyalty would never override their educational prejudice. My patent wouldn't receive fair consideration through normal channels. If I wanted to save my grandfather's company and prove my worth, I needed a different approach entirely. The annual shareholders meeting was 6 weeks away. For the first time, I began to see it not as an administrative event I helped coordinate, but as an opportunity. Wilson Tech's financial situation deteriorated rapidly in the weeks leading to the annual meeting. Quarterly projections showed a 17% revenue decline, and 2 long-standing clients announced they wouldn't renew their contracts. The development team missed another product milestone, pushing our next-generation release back 6 months, an eternity in tech manufacturing. I watched the crisis unfold through departmental reports crossing my desk and conversations nobody bothered to hide from just an assistant. The executive team worked increasingly late hours, their faces grim during hurried hallway consultations. Grandfather started appearing at the office daily despite having stepped back from operations years earlier. I often found him in his old office, reviewing financial statements with a magnifying glass, his fingers tracing downward-pointing graphs. "We built this company on innovation," he told me during one such visit. "Somehow we've lost that spark." A week before the shareholders' meeting, Professor Miller invited me for virtual coffee. "How's your patent being received?" she asked. I explained the situation, frustration evident in my voice. "Rebecca, this isn't just about family recognition anymore," she said seriously. "Your cooling system could be the innovation they need. Sometimes the most meaningful contributions come from unexpected sources." "They won't even look at it," I replied. "Then change the venue. You mentioned the shareholders' meeting. Do you own any company shares?" I did, a small amount. When I turned 21, Grandfather had gifted each grandchild 10 shares. I'd purchased 15 more with my savings over the years, believing in the company despite everything. My 25 shares were negligible compared to family holdings, but they made me a shareholder nonetheless. "Review the company bylaws," Professor Miller suggested. "Most corporations allow shareholders to speak at annual meetings." That night, I pulled up the Wilson Tech corporate governance documents. Section 7.3 clearly stated, "Any shareholder may address the assembly for up to 5 minutes on matters pertinent to company valuation and strategy, subject to chairman approval." The chairman was my grandfather. My next call was to Margaret Chen, my patent attorney. "I need a professional valuation of my cooling system patent," I explained. "And I need it before next Thursday." "That's very rushed," she cautioned. "Thorough valuations take weeks." "I'll pay the expedited rate," I replied, wincing at the impact this would have on my savings. "And I need you at the shareholders' meeting as my guest." Meanwhile, at work, preparations for the meeting reached frantic levels. The executive team sequestered themselves for strategy sessions. Rumors circulated about major announcements. On Tuesday, I overheard the financial officer mention acquisition proposals to Uncle Thomas. They were really planning to sell. Wednesday night, unable to sleep, I drove to the office to collect my thoughts in quiet. To my surprise, grandfather's office light was on. I knocked softly. "Come in," he called, sounding tired. He sat surrounded by old photo albums, the company's history and images. Workers smiling beside the first manufacturing line. Grandfather accepting industry awards. Family picnics with the original team. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. I shook my head. "Grandpa, is it true? Are you selling the company?" His weathered hands closed the album. "Thomas believes it's the only path forward. Our innovation pipeline is dry, our technology falling behind. The offer from Microdyne would at least preserve jobs." "At what valuation?" I asked. "22 million, he replied. "Down from 80 million 3 years ago." The figure stunned me. The company's decline was worse than I'd imagined. "You don't approve," he observed. "It's not my place to approve or disapprove," I said carefully. "But I believe in what you built." He studied me thoughtfully. "You know, you remind me of myself at your age. Nobody took me seriously either." He gestured to the albums. "Sometimes vision comes from unexpected places." The next morning, I dressed more carefully than usual. A charcoal suit I'd saved for special occasions, subtle makeup, hair pulled back professionally. In my briefcase, the patent documentation, the rush valuation from Margaret, and my shareholder statement. The Wilson Tech Conference Center buzzed with tension as shareholders filed in. Many were longtime investors who'd watched their holdings lose value steadily. They clustered in concerned groups, voices low and serious. Uncle Thomas looked surprised to see me in the reserve seating. "This is for shareholders," he said. I produced my shareholder certificate silently. The meeting began with formalities, minutes, procedural votes, financial reports. Then Uncle Thomas took the podium for his chairman's address. His usual confidence seemed forced as he detailed market challenges and transitional opportunities. Finally, he reached the announcement. "After careful consideration, the board is recommending acceptance of Microdyne Corporation's acquisition offer. While the offer price of $22 million represents a significant discount from our historical valuation, it provides certainty in an uncertain market." Murmurs rippled through the audience. This wasn't a strategic partnership, it was a fire sale. Following procedure, grandfather opened the floor to shareholder questions. Several institutional investors expressed disappointment with the valuation. When they finished, I raised my hand. Grandfather acknowledged me with a nod. "The chair recognizes Rebecca Wilson." Uncle Thomas stepped forward. "Point of order. Administrative staff are here to support the meeting, not participate in it." "Ms. Wilson is present as a shareholder," grandfather corrected. "She has the floor." I approached the podium, heart pounding. As I arranged my documents, Uncle Thomas laughed dismissively. "With all due respect to family loyalty," he said loudly, "I'm not sure what insights into semiconductor manufacturing will gain from someone with a worthless online degree." The room fell uncomfortably silent. Even those who might have agreed seemed embarrassed by the naked contempt in his tone. "Perhaps we should stick to credentialed perspectives," he continued. "Security, please escort Ms. Wilson back to her seat." A security officer started forward, but grandfather's voice cut through the room. "The chair has recognized shareholder Wilson. She will speak her allotted 5 minutes, without interruption. Proceed, Rebecca." I took a deep breath and faced the assembly, acutely aware that my entire future hung on the next 5 minutes. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "Fellow shareholders, I stand before you not just as a Wilson Tech employee or family member, but as the holder of United States Patent 10,758,492. I placed the patent documentation on the projector, its official seal appearing on screens throughout the room. This patent covers a novel microprocessor cooling system that resolves the exact thermal efficiency problems plaguing our current product line. Independent testing shows it can reduce operating temperatures by 31% while increasing processing capacity by 26%, all with minimal changes to our existing manufacturing infrastructure. Uncle Thomas stepped toward the podium. "This is ridiculous. Whatever hobby project, Mr. Wilson, grandfather interrupted sharply. The speaker has the floor. Continue, Rebecca. I projected the technical specifications. Our competitors have advanced while we've stagnated. Our once leading market position has eroded not because semiconductor manufacturing isn't profitable, but because we've failed to innovate in critical areas, particularly thermal management. I clicked to the next slide, the independent valuation. According to Patterson Technology Valuation Group, the market value of this cooling system patent alone is estimated between $40 and $60 million, depending on implementation scope. The room erupted in murmurs. I pressed on. 3 competing manufacturers have already expressed interest in licensing this technology. Their preliminary offers are included in your handouts. Uncle Thomas snatched a document from the nearest table. His face darkened as he scanned the figures. This is preposterous, he snapped. No cooling system is worth these amounts. Who conducted this so-called valuation? What are their credentials? Right on cue, Professor Miller and Margaret Chin stood from their seats in the audience. I'm Janet Miller, Ph.D., Professor of Computer Engineering at MIT's online program and former Chief Technology Officer at Intel, Professor Miller announced. I've overseen the technical verification of Ms. Wilson's innovation. It's not just incremental, it's revolutionary. Margaret stepped forward. Margaret Chen, intellectual property attorney. I supervised the patent application process and coordinated the independent valuation. The methodology follows industry standards and considers both cost-saving and performance enhancement factors. Uncle Thomas looked stunned. You've been developing this secretly? While employed here? On my own time, with my own resources, I clarified. As documented in my development logs, which were verified during the patent process. Grandfather leaned forward. Rebecca, are you suggesting your patent could make our products competitive again? More than competitive, I replied. Industry-leading. The thermal bottleneck has constrained processing power across the sector. Solving it opens opportunities beyond our current market. Blake pushed through to the front. This is a stunt, he declared. Theoretical designs rarely work in production environments. Where's the prototype? Where's the proof? I reached into my briefcase and removed a small acrylic case containing a processor mounted on a circuit board. Full-scale production would require retooling, but this functional prototype demonstrates the principles. I connected the device to the presentation system. Real-time temperature readings appeared alongside processing benchmarks, numbers that exceeded industry standards by margins that couldn't be dismissed. I've developed this technology because I believe in what Wilson Tech represents, I continued. Not shareholder value, though that matters. Not family legacy, though that's important too. But innovation that solves real problems. That's what my grandfather built this company to do. The room had gone completely silent. Even Blake stood speechless. You have 2 options today, I concluded. Sell to Microdyne for $22 million, or table that decision to explore implementation of technology that could restore our market position and increase company valuation well beyond $50 million. The choice seems clear from both business and legacy perspectives. As I returned to my seat, the room erupted. Institutional investors demanded details about implementation timelines. Individual shareholders questioned why the technology hadn't been disclosed earlier. Board members huddled in urgent consultation. Uncle Thomas attempted to regain control, banging the gavel repeatedly. Order. This presentation, while interesting, doesn't change the board's recommendation. The Microdyne offer provides certainty, while Ms. Wilson's patent represents untested potential. I call for a vote, came a voice from the institutional investor section. Motion to table the acquisition decision pending evaluation of the patent integration. Second, called several voices simultaneously. Grandfather, as chairman, had no choice but to acknowledge the motion. Those in favor of tabling the acquisition decision for 60 days pending evaluation of patent 10,758,492 for company integration? Hands rose throughout the room. Nearly every non-family shareholder and even 2 board members. Those opposed, Uncle Thomas, Blake, and the remaining board members raised their hands, clearly outnumbered. "The motion carries," grandfather announced. "The proposed acquisition is tabled for 60 days. A special committee will evaluate integration of the cooling system technology." He looked directly at me. "Rebecca Wilson will chair this committee." Uncle Thomas's face flushed deep red. "This is highly irregular. She lacks the qualifications too." "She holds the patent," grandfather interrupted firmly, "and clearly understands the technology better than those with more impressive credentials." The meeting is adjourned. As shareholders filed out, many stopped to introduce themselves or hand me business cards. For the first time, they were seeing me not as an administrative assistant or a Wilson by birth, but as the innovator who might save their investments. Grandfather caught my eye across the room and gave me a slight nod, a gesture that contained more approval than any words could express. Uncle Thomas and Blake had already disappeared through the executive exit. I knew the battle was far from over, but for this moment, the patent I'd created in my makeshift home lab had accomplished what years of work and an online degree couldn't. It had given me a voice that couldn't be dismissed. The 60 days following the shareholders' meeting were the most intense of my life. As committee chair, I suddenly had access to resources I'd been denied for years: engineering teams, manufacturing specifications, market analysts. My small apartment became command central, walls covered with timelines and integration flowcharts. Uncle Thomas avoided me entirely, communicating through terse emails or intermediaries. Blake, however, took a different approach. "We should discuss how to move forward," he suggested, appearing at my temporary office the week after the meeting. "Family should present a united front." His sudden collegiality didn't fool me. "I agree the family business deserves our collective support. The committee will provide weekly updates on our progress." "Rebecca," he lowered his voice, "be reasonable. We could position this as a joint development, your technical insights, my business acumen. A true Wilson collaboration." I studied my cousin, realizing he was offering the family recognition I'd craved for years, but at the cost of sharing credit for work that wasn't his. "The patent documentation clearly identifies the inventor," I replied, "but implementation will require many talents, including business expertise. Your input will be valued in appropriate contexts." His expression hardened. "You'll regret this approach. Some doors only open through cooperation." Despite such tensions, work progressed rapidly. The engineering team, once they moved past their initial skepticism, embraced the challenge of implementing my design. Senior engineer Marcus Delgado became a particular ally. "I've been raising concerns about our thermal management for 3 years," he confided. "Your solution is elegant. We just needed someone to break through the politics." 2 weeks in, we faced our first major obstacle. The manufacturing retooling would cost $12 million, more than initially estimated. Uncle Thomas sees this as proof of the project's unfeasibility. "The board can't justify this expenditure on unproven technology," he argued during an emergency meeting. I was prepared. 3 semiconductor manufacturers have expressed interest in licensing the patent, I explained, distributing term sheets. The upfront licensing fees would cover retooling costs, with ongoing royalties providing additional revenue streams. Grandfather, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "So we implement internally and license externally simultaneously?" "Exactly," I confirmed. "We gain manufacturing advantage while monetizing the innovation industry-wide." The board approved the approach with only Uncle Thomas and his closest ally voting against. Implementation challenges continued. Suppliers questioned orders coming from a team led by someone they'd previously known only as an assistant. Technical integration revealed complexities not evident in the prototype stage. Each problem required creative solutions and tested my leadership. Through it all, family dynamics shifted subtly. My mother began asking genuine questions about my work. My father, initially uncomfortable with my confrontation of his brother, gradually showed pride in my persistence. Even Aunt Diana moved from quiet support to active advocacy. For weeks into the implementation process, we produced the first test batch of processors with a new cooling system. The results exceeded even my projections, 35% thermal improvement with 28% performance gains. Quality control reported 0 failures in stress testing. Marcus and the engineering team celebrated with champagne in the lab. We need to accelerate the production schedule, he urged. The market will go crazy for these specs. Uncle Thomas remained the primary obstacle. As CEO, he controlled production priorities and repeatedly questioned the test methodology. Limited samples don't predict mass production performance, he insisted. We need extended trials before committing resources. Each delay tactic pushed against our 60-day evaluation window. I realized he was running out the clock, hoping to resurrect the acquisition offer when time expired. I brought the issue directly to grandfather. We're ready for initial production, but facing administrative roadblocks. He nodded thoughtfully. The board granted you authority over implementation. Exercise it. With grandfather's implicit backing, I issued production authorizations directly. Uncle Thomas was furious, but couldn't countermand without triggering a governance review. 6 weeks into our timeline, the first commercial-ready processors shipped to select customers for field testing. Their feedback was immediate and enthusiastic. These performance metrics change our entire product roadmap, wrote the CTO of our largest client. We'll increase our order by 40% if you can maintain these specifications in volume production. Similar responses poured in. The sales department, initially skeptical of my leadership, became my strongest advocates as order projections doubled. Financial analysts took notice. Wilson Tech stock price, which had been declining steadily for 18 months, jumped 12% in a single day after the first customer testimonials became public. By week 7, it had increased 34% from pre-announcement levels. Industry publications requested interviews. I insisted on featuring the entire implementation team rather than taking personal credit, earning deeper loyalty from previously dubious colleagues. Week 8 brought a watershed moment. During the regular executive committee meeting, the financial officer presented updated company valuations. Based on revised order projections, licensing agreements, and market response, he reported, Wilson Tech's enterprise value is now estimated at $53 million, a 140% increase from the Microdyne offer. The room fell silent. Uncle Thomas stared at the projection screen, his expression unreadable. These are preliminary estimates, he finally said. We shouldn't overreact to market enthusiasm. The numbers are conservative, the financial officer countered. They don't fully account for potential licensing expansion or second-generation applications. Grandfather turned to me. It seems your patent has indeed transformed our outlook, Rebecca. The board will need recommendations for organizational changes to support this new direction. The implication was clear, leadership adjustments were coming. Uncle Thomas must have sensed it too. He cornered me after the meeting. Impressive work, he conceded, the words clearly difficult for him. I underestimated the market impact. Thank you, I replied, recognizing this was the closest to an apology I would receive. The company still needs experienced leadership, he continued. Technical innovation must be balanced with business continuity. I met his gaze directly. I agree completely. Wilson Tech needs leadership that values both. The implementation committee will recommend a new executive structure that integrates technical innovation and business expertise more effectively. His eyes narrowed slightly. Including what role for yourself? Chief Innovation Officer, I replied without hesitation, reporting directly to the board. He started to object, then seemed to reconsider. The Harvard Business Review recently published an article on the value of diverse educational backgrounds in executive teams, he said carefully. Perhaps there's merit in different perspectives. It wasn't acceptance, but it was acknowledgement, something I'd sought for years. The following week, exactly 59 days after the shareholders' meeting, the board voted unanimously to terminate acquisition discussions with Microdyne and approve full-scale implementation of the cooling system technology. They also approved a new executive structure, including my appointment as Chief Innovation Officer. As we left the boardroom, Grandfather pulled me aside. The company valuation hit $56 million this morning, he said quietly. Your mother called to tell me she's having your degree professionally framed for your new office. The significance wasn't lost on me. My online degree, long the symbol of my supposed inadequacy, would now hang proudly in the executive suite of Wilson Tech. Not bad for an internet diploma, I replied with a smile. Grandfather's eyes crinkled. Innovation never comes from doing things the way they've always been done. I should have remembered that lesson sooner. As we walked together toward the offices that bore our family name, I realized the validation I'd sought wasn't just about my education, or even my patent. It was about recognizing that contribution matters more than credentials, a lesson my family had finally, painfully learned. Transitions are rarely smooth, even when necessary. My first months as Chief Innovation Officer brought both triumphs and challenges as Wilson Tech adapted to new leadership and direction. Uncle Thomas remained CEO, but with redefined responsibilities, focusing on client relationships and financial oversight, areas where his Harvard business training genuinely added value. Our working relationship remained professional but distant, each interaction carefully calibrated. Blake struggled most with the new reality. His third promotion had been postponed indefinitely, his fast track to executive leadership derailed. I found him staring at my newly installed office nameplate one morning. "Congratulations," he offered stiffly. "Quite an achievement." "Thank you," I replied. "The innovation team has an opening for a market analysis director. Your business background would be valuable if you're interested." His surprise was evident. "You'd want me on your team? After everything?" Family complications aside, you understand our client base better than most. Talent shouldn't be wasted on grudges. He considered this. "I'll think about it." He accepted the position 2 weeks later. Our working relationship began awkwardly, but gradually found equilibrium. Blake's market insights complemented my technical focus, and he seemed genuinely engaged when freed from the pressure of being Thomas's heir apparent. My parents underwent their own evolution. Mom stopped referring to my computer classes and started proudly mentioning her daughter, the executive, at her social gatherings. Dad, more privately, apologized for not supporting my educational choices. "I was wrong," he admitted during a rare one-on-one dinner. "I confused the container with the content." "The container matters sometimes," I acknowledged, "but not as much as we thought." Grandfather became my most enthusiastic supporter, often dropping by my office with newspaper clippings about educational innovation or profiles of successful entrepreneurs with non-traditional backgrounds. Beyond family, I focused on transforming Wilson Tech's culture. My first initiative established an innovation incubator program open to employees at all levels, regardless of educational background or tenure. Promising ideas received development resources and mentorship, with inventors sharing in resulting patents. Marcus Delgado, who had championed my cooling system implementation, became the program's first director. "We're mining for diamonds," he explained to skeptical managers. "They don't always come from expected places." The results spoke for themselves. Within 6 months, the incubator generated 17 viable product improvements and 2 potentially groundbreaking innovations. Employees previously overlooked because of non-traditional backgrounds finally had pathways to contribute meaningfully. My own journey continued evolving. The online program that had been dismissed as worthless invited me to deliver their commencement address. Standing before hundreds of graduates who had balanced education with life responsibilities, I shared what I'd learned. Your degree's value isn't determined by its delivery method or the prestige of its institution, I told them. It's determined by how you apply the knowledge, the problems you solve, the value you create. No one can diminish that except by your permission. The speech resonated beyond the ceremony, being shared widely in education forums. This unexpected platform allowed me to advocate for broader recognition of non-traditional learning paths in hiring and advancement practices. Wilson Tech established 5 annual scholarships for students pursuing technical degrees through alternative education models. The application requirements explicitly valued problem-solving aptitude over institutional prestige. Company performance continued strengthening. 1 year after implementing my cooling system, Wilson Tech's valuation exceeded $70 million. The technology had expanded beyond our original product line, creating new market opportunities and revenue streams. During the next shareholders' meeting, so different from the contentious gathering that had changed everything, grandfather made a surprising announcement. After 50 years guiding this company, he declared, "I'm fully retiring from the board. My final act as chairman is naming my successor." He paused, his gaze moving deliberately across the family members present. Rebecca Wilson will serve as the next chairperson of Wilson Tech Manufacturing. The appointment, while unexpected in its timing, received unanimous board approval. Even Uncle Thomas voted in favor, a public acknowledgement of the new reality. The celebration dinner that evening brought the entire Wilson family together. Tensions hadn't disappeared entirely, but they had transformed into something more productive, a family learning to value contribution over conformity. Aunt Diana hugged me warmly. "Harold always believed in you," she whispered, even when he couldn't show it. Uncle Thomas approached as dessert was served. "The cooling system integration was masterfully handled," he acknowledged, the closest to a compliment he'd offered since my appointment. "The market positioning has exceeded projections." "Thank you," I replied. "It was truly a team achievement." He nodded, then added something unexpected. "I've been researching online executive education programs. Times change. Adaptability matters." That moment crystallized how thoroughly perspectives had shifted, not just about my capabilities, but about what constitutes valuable knowledge and how it can be acquired. Later that evening, grandfather and I stood on his terrace overlooking the city lights. "You know what I'm proudest of?" he asked quietly. "The company valuation?" I suggested. He shook his head. "That you didn't give up. Innovation requires persistence through resistance. You showed that quality and abundance." "I had a good example," I replied, thinking of how he'd built the company from nothing. He smiled. "The true measure of success isn't what you build, but whether it continues growing after you step aside. You've ensured that future." Today, Wilson Tech's valuation exceeds $90 million. My patent has been joined by dozens more from our innovation incubator. We've become an industry leader in recognizing talent regardless of credential source, creating pathways for brilliant minds who don't fit traditional molds. The most meaningful validation, however, came unexpectedly. Last month, I received an email from a young woman in our customer service department who had enrolled in an online engineering program. "Your story showed me it's possible," she wrote. "Thank you for making space for different paths." That message hangs framed in my office, next to my once-mocked online degree. It reminds me daily that our greatest contribution often lies not in what we achieve personally, but in which doors we leave open behind us. Have you ever had your qualifications or achievements dismissed because they didn't come through traditional channels? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey of proving worth beyond credentials resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more stories about unexpected triumphs and personal vindication. Share this with someone whose path might not be conventional, but whose potential is limitless. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember that innovation rarely comes from doing things the way they've always been done.